Signals and sparks, lighting the way in the world of ideas. We'll boldly sway, transforming the data, giving it sound on this vibrant journey. Let's astound and astound.
Welcome to Series 2 of the After Dinner Chats. This is Signals and Sparks. Now, the reason for calling it Signals and Sparks is that Series 1 was all about ripped off less. Now, ripped off less was something that I'd felt strongly about for many years, since our job and the people that I respect the most are helping their clients and their colleagues get ripped off less by other bad actors or other big players in the market who are trying to make an unfair margin. So what I wanted to do next was to celebrate the people who are creative. Now, people say that they're not creative, but actually everyone is creative in their own particular way, because we're all inventing things and inventing ways to do things all the time. It's just like people say that they're not a salesman, and yet the best salesmen aren't trying to push product. The best salesmen are just telling stories. They're the kind of people that you want to have at a dinner table. And actually, that's where all of these podcasts started, of course, was at a dinner table. So, signals and sparks. Signals from the original idea of what are the signals in the noise, that wonderful book that came out some years ago, The Signal and the Noise. The other part is the sparks. So what are the things that are the creative sparks amongst the people that come on the podcast? They're the things that I wanted to look at in this series. Kicking off this series is Paul Evans. So Paul I met some years ago when I first moved back to the UK, when he was setting up one business, and then he pivoted to set up a different business. He has, as he'll talk about in this talk today, is really looking at how he helps other businesses position themselves. And clearly, he's thought long and hard about how he positions his business as well. He's a fascinating and interesting character who has many wonderful facets to his life. Not just the business side of things, not just the fact he does outrageously interesting physical endeavors like the fight night that he was part of last year. He's also a budding writer as well. He has a fabulous turn of phrase, and he's writing a series of books at the moment. But that is a story for another time. Maybe you'll catch him at a dinner party with me and with others. In the meantime, here's the conversation between me and Paul about signals and sparks. Paul, lovely to catch up with you.
Good to see you too.
So what I'd love to do is jump straight in. So this series, Signal and Sparks, I'd love to start off with the signal in the noise. What's been catching your eye recently in the news?
So I'm going to give you two news stories, I think, based on kind of like what I would call love and hate. So I think the first one is, let's go with kind of hate first of all, which I think is really interesting that Google are now getting sued left, right and center by two businesses that have come into the news. So the first one was a couple of weeks back, which is Pubmatic. And then the second one, which was I think last week, was Magnite. And what was really, really interesting was just how they both approached it. I particularly thought the way that Pubmatic approached that decision and the way they contextualized that decision was incredibly smart positioning for their business, actually. So they really leaned in on, yes, they acknowledged the action of suing Google, but they leaned in on the reasons why, about transparency and fairness within the industry, and about those monopolistic kind of behaviors that are just like anti-competitive, and they're just not great, are they, for everybody in the industry and the open internet, for one. So really, really good. Magnite did it kind of a little bit more kind of matter of fact, and I think they kind of missed an opportunity there, and went more into lost revenue. So kind of interesting. I think people were suing Google, which I think legitimately, we've seen the one DOJ ruling on search monopolistic behaviors, and they got away with it. So I think this is great that they're now being kind of sued by ad tech, and we wait to see what happens on ad tech next. So that's the kind of
I'm going to question
Cool.
on something you said there. You
Yeah.
talked about positioning. The approach they'd taken was good for their positioning.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that?
Yeah, I think it was a really smart opportunity to show the industry through this act and this behavior their values and the values that they bring to their clients and to the interest of the industry. So it's not quite so within positioning practice we talk about value differentiation, and that value differentiation is usually the value you create in solving an urgent problem for a client or your target customer group. And this is a little bit of that. So it's not, it doesn't really reflect on, their efficiency as an SSP in the delivery of kind of relevant inventory in terms of, supply and demand equilibrium and so on like that. But it shows a real grounding and purpose in the way that they want to be perceived and the way that they want to act and behave within the industry, which both align to my own kind of principles, but I thought more so, and whether it's the reason why they did it or not, I can't tell you, but I think the way that they presented it, the way that the CEO provided a narrative to support that tone and that kind of like that agenda, I think was really, really great. They could have done what Magnite did and just put out a press release saying we're suing Google. They actually put out a whole, there was a website and there was, content around this, which said, this is the why that we're doing it. And that why is an incredibly important part of most positioning work.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Your other piece. The love.
Thank you for remembering. Yeah, the kind of love-hate thing. So, and let me just remind myself of my notes. Oh yeah, the love affair is quite an interesting one. It's in the news this week. Is Amazon partnering up with Netflix, and what that says about demand-side technologies and inventory and audience access. I mean, Jesus, where have Amazon come from? It's kind of quite incredible to have seen their meteoric rise. So I've been out of client side, decisioning, Vodafone being my last role, where we were looking at Amazon at the time, and it was recognized as an incredibly poor DSP, just functionally and user experience wise, and just you wouldn't go near it. Wind the clock forward 6 years, and they've put themselves into quite an incredible position, recognizing their strengths of data and deterministic data that they can bring from their Amazon retail ecosystem. And I'm not that familiar with the DSP in terms of its capabilities and so on like that, so I'm kind of applying a little bit of 1 + 1 here. But they've got themselves into a position where they're now being recognized as, as somebody that could take on the trade desk, which isn't a bad thing in and of itself. So again, going back to Google and kind of monopolies, for the open internet, the trade desk has kind of elevated itself over time into that position. And I'm not saying it's a monopolist, by the way, just for clarity, audience. Don't want to get sued. I'm saying that it's reached an incredibly strong position within the ecosystem in the demand, but also the supply side kind of activities that it operates. I think competition is one of the strongest things that you can have within an industry, because it breeds innovation. It creates a desire and a need to improve and be the best. I look at my competitive set for positioning, and that's I'm going all in on wanting to kind of be the better positioning expert, the best positioning expert within the world. That's my kind of aspiration. And for our industry, I think it's great that we have alternates that can look at solving the industry's problems in different ways. And so I kind of think it's cool that Amazon have come along. They've obviously worked really, really hard on their demand side and supply side game, and have got themselves into a position where Netflix thinks, because Netflix are working with the trade desk and are working with the trade desk, I think, as well as Xandr. I might be wrong on that. But they've got themselves into a position where they're recognized by Netflix as, a new partner, and a partner that will be critical to monetizing the inventory and audiences that they have. So it's kind of a nice love to hate kind of story there.
I love that, and I love the fact that you talk about the Amazon side of things and how it gives kudos to Amazon. I think it gives a lot of kudos to Netflix as well. It's a great story for Netflix.
Yeah, great.
There as well.
Great
I
show.
really like the Netflix proposition, which has not been, was hardly on the map a couple of years ago, and the advertising proposition is just getting stronger and stronger for them. So it'll be really interesting to see how this pans out. You talked just then about your ambition to be the greatest positioning expert in the world. I think that should be said with a Jeremy Clarkson style. In the world. So tell me, what are you up to, and how are you connecting the dots?
So I'll just talk to like leaving Vodafone, kind of going into the industry, then in the other side of the table, basically having been on kind of one side of the table as the client and then operating as a fractional CMO within ad tech and media, thoroughly enjoying it, but not really building anything per se. So I was kind of just enjoying doing the work, which is what I wanted to do. I've always, if anybody that knows me, I've got a pretty strong work ethic, and as a kind of trained marketer, and the way that I look at marketing is understanding kind of business problems and solving them through the different means available. I wanted to practice marketing again and do that for different businesses, and I really enjoyed that for 5 years. It was fantastic. But as I say, I felt like there's a little bit of imposter syndrome. Like I don't know whether I was kind of, I know I was valued and valuable because my clients told me so. But I didn't think I was really building something for myself or something that I could be proud of that was bigger than me as a kind of my expertise as such. So there's a kind of combination of things. There was positioning was probably the most frequently asked for service from me within that 5-year period. It was probably what I enjoyed the most and kind of felt I was delivering well as a capability, and based on intuition or kind of experience, I was kind of delivering that. And then I did a Mark Ritson mini MBA course it was like 20 years since I'd kind of done anything, professional marketing training since my degree. So like wanting to do that again. And it was really interesting. I was kind of looking at positioning and the positioning's role within like overall marketing strategy. And it kind of sat squarely in the middle, almost like a bow tie, as this critical point of catalyzation, right? Of translation of your business strategy into go-to-market. And like, positioning just isn't recognized for that value, that critical role that it plays. It's kind of very often seen as messaging, like the last thing that you do, and the way that you spin, it's like, buzzwords and kind of creative messaging that you'd apply to your product and so on like that. Whereas recognizing positioning in the role that it comes from as its original concept kind of says, you really need to nail this as the translation of your business strategy before going to market, before making those decisions on product and pricing and distribution. It could be so much more than that. So that, in combination with timing, because timing is everything, as is a phrase and expression, but it's an evidenced thing in terms of the success of businesses as well. And in this intelligence era that we now find ourselves in, this kind of AI-driven era, I felt a few things coming together, which were about the means of harnessing AI technologies and techniques in developing positioning and making positioning as a capability more data-driven and more dynamic than it's ever been. So, because I think most people look at positioning when they kind of ask for it, as the expectation is like a one and done kind of project. And, and a lot of the consultants I see kind of working in this field aren't really bringing data to the table, like proper rigor in terms of the diagnostics, and then also the development of positioning assets. So I wanted to address that, and I also wanted to address this idea of positioning being dynamic and adaptive over time. That it was almost like, the metaphor I use is kind of positioning like software. So it's the development of positioning that brings crystal clear understanding of what a business's capability and value is that they bring in solving an urgent problem, but then doing that in a dynamic and adaptive way that it can be updated over time in response to market changes, so new legislation, a competitor launch, and also internal changes like M&A as an example, or a new market entry. So I'm now working with clients on that basis. I go in and undertake this rigorous work that is part science now and part with kind of a heavy data-driven and strong, rigorous methodological approach to the analysis and deduction and the development of positional assets, alongside a creative kind of lens, which is hard for AI to replicate, actually, which is why there's a kind of human in the loop approach to the model I have for version at the moment. I think it'll be interesting to see where I can scale this going forwards, if it's going to be like replicating me on a consulting model basis, or I have a thesis that there's a digital product within here as well that can represent version's capabilities without losing any of the rigor or creativity applied to it, that can help democratize the value that positioning engineering brings to the market. So it's kind of a long answer there, but I was kind of like, there's a lot in kind of what I've tried to develop as version.
I think it's really interesting. So when we met, you were positioning one business, and then since soon after that, I was reintroduced to you by our mutual friend Patrick, for whom you positioned his business, and he still speaks very highly of that one particular project that you did with him repositioning.
One of the first ones, actually. So I owe Patrick a lot in terms of allowing me to kind of like do that fundamental work for his business, and allowing me to kind of and as I've very often found, my kind of clients tend to be founders and CEOs, because you need that recognition of the significance of positioning as a capability, and you need that support in terms of aligning your teams to drive it through your business and bring it to market. So thank you.
The other thing that you mentioned is the scaling. And that is a really difficult and interesting piece, as to how you take a one-man band to being a multinational business with different people running version in different cities around the world, and then how you grow on that. And actually, in today's AI-driven world, having the version bot where you go in with your 101 questions. But I think it's about maturity, and I think one of the things that we're all talking about is, ever since BCG and Google did their digital maturity piece, looking at what are the 4 stages you've got. And today is about,
remember that,
what's good look like and how do you get there? And so somebody wants to define strategy to me as being the road that you take to get to the goal that you've agreed on. And I go, actually, it's the steps that you take along the way to get there, so you get closer to being a mature piece. It'd be really interesting to see how version grows, and I look forward to watching from afar.
Thanks.
I'd like to jump on to the next stage of this pod, if I may. It's the quick fire round. If you're ready for this, we've got the.
I'll never be ready, but let's just do it anyway.
5 questions to finish off. So first up, your hero. Who do you admire?
So a long-time industry friend and supporter and kind of sparring partner as well, Victoria Asher from Ginge May, probably the industry's best PR practitioner. But just what I love about Victoria is her energy and the way that she approaches problem solving. And I've been lucky enough to work with her on taking version to market as well. Her just amazing team, Kirsty Langham as an example. But yeah, Victoria kind of like embodies the spirit of that business, the knowledge and expertise of the industry, and the way that she, you know, unlocks the value in her PR practice. She's just a lovely human being as well, which is kind of always nice.
Fantastic. Oh, I look forward to. I've met her briefly along the way, but I don't know her. Your best decision?
Starting version. It has to be. It's like I feel like I've got unfinished business intellectually, in terms of creating and transforming the capability of positioning. I really do. I think it's a 40-year-old capability when the original book came out on positioning, and it's really not been updated since. And I think both in terms of the necessary transformation that it requires, relevant to the intelligence era that we're in right now, and what that can bring as value, but also just necessary in terms of like solving problems for clients that I do right now, right? You know, only 1% of businesses ever achieve true scale defined by like $100 million kind of revenues. Half of all startups fail within 3 to 5 years. I mean, there's a serious set of problems that positioning can solve as that critical catalyser of business strategy to go to market, and being able to deliver that clarity within market of why you should be chosen and preferred to solve a problem over anybody else. That sounds like pretty fucking essential work for any business out there. And so many businesses don't address their positioning. I'm here to do that.
I love how you have really clicked with your own positioning, talking about the fact that there are some other good people out there, but you intend to be the best in the world. So as you're saying at the top of this,
Yeah.
And I think that that's a you know, exciting as you look to scale. Okay, so what's your worst decision?
Leaving Microsoft, I'll say that. I think Microsoft was an incredible journey for me in terms of the people I was working with, the business I was working within, the brand I was working on, which was Xbox, the team I was working with that I was lucky to hire and help deliver on the ambition and model that I'd set for the Xbox and media practice. And, you know, it was one of those really poor career decisions made more with emotion than rational decision making. So, you know, and not to just not to ignore the fact that their share price went from, you know, whatever it was at the time, $30 to it's now at like $300. So there was clearly an economic impact on my own situation. So, you know, I think it would have been interesting to have seen how I would have evolved within that business as, you know, as it's grown and under the current leadership. The CEO, I forget his name, has been there for like 10 or 15 years now, and has just done an incredible job with that business.
Well, Satya Nadella has been there, yes. And then our own WPP, our own new WPP CEO has just jumped over from Microsoft. So it'll be interesting to see how she turns around the ship of WPP.
No pressure.
Yeah, no pressure. So the funniest moment, what's your funniest moment?
Yeah, so I will redefine funniest as fun, I think, to answer that. I think it's probably been like the different challenges, physical challenges that I put myself through. And you'd be kind of surprised, I guess, to kind of hear me apply the word fun to like media fight night and 9 months of physical punishment and learning the craft of boxing and going into the ring with an incredible guy, Lee Yoxall from PhD, and doing 3 2-minute rounds with him and coming out the other side of it.
What's the next big challenge? Your next big
So where do you? It's kind of like, where do you go from media fight night? It was the thing I was left with after that. And so I'm now learning a martial art, which is Choi Kong Do. My kids done it doing it. He's already a brown belt, which is just embarrassing because I'm now starting at like white belt. I've got to yellow already, which is kind of great a few months in. But then I came across serendipitously something called the Marathon des Sables, which is the toughest foot race on earth, apparently. And literally, I think it is. It's 250K in the Sahara. So back to back, basically marathons that you're kind of trekking, running every day. It looks insane. I managed to convince my wife to let me do it. And so in April, the 3rd to the 13th of 2026, I'm going to be doing Marathon des Sables Legendary, and I can't wait.
I know of the Marathon des Sables. My wife was saying, "Isn't that the most exciting thing? We should do it." I told her I was busy on those days. Well, I'm so impressed.
Wise decision.
Impressive, and the funnest moment. Fair enough. Good reframing there. Final question. A bright spark. I'm going to ask you to recommend a person to come to speak to on this, and of course, it's somebody who will have to come for dinner if they haven't already. Who would you recommend comes on this pod next?
It's somebody we both know, actually, which is kind of really nice in the first place, I guess. Somebody that I was exposed to through working with Adform as a partner when I was at Vodafone. Always been incredibly impressed by her energy, the way she approaches kind of partner relationships, the way she solves problems. She's so smart, and deservedly has just taken a new role at Deliveroo Media, where I think the job title was kind of global VP for that, that division of the business. Her name is Lucia Mastro Mauro. That's my incredibly poor pronunciation of her surname. And I've loved being within the industry, working with her, and then also kind of knowing her as a supporter and as a good industry friend. I think she'd be great interviewee on the podcast.
I'm delighted. This lends weight to the fact that I've asked her, and she said that she might at some stage. So now she's jolly well.
She's got nowhere to turn now. Yeah, we've got two of us. Kind of like
great to talk to you. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
In the twilight, we gather around the table, stories to share, ideas unstable with signals bright. Through data we roam, creating sparks. We're building a home. Hear the whispers of innovation. The future's calling. It's our foundation. Signals and sparks, lighting the way in the world of ideas. We'll boldly sway, transforming the data, giving it sound on this vibrant journey. Let's